What's up, guys? Welcome to Neek, which stands for Nerd Size Geek. And if that relates to you, I would consider clicking that subscribe button. So yeah, Community is my all-time favorite show, except maybe Stranger Things. They're like right neck and neck, but Community is my favorite comedy show. I just love this show so much. It has a great cast playing these phenomenal, well fleshed out characters that are all very different and have these great interactions and stuff, and kind of like show all these different sides of life and how different people can be, yet they all feel connected and feel like a community. And I also just love like the school they go to. I love the comedy in it. Obviously, it's a hilarious show, and I also just love this show, how creative it gets, and it's always something new, always something fresh. So that's kind of why I love this show overall. So now I'm gonna get into my ranking of the seasons, and yeah, I love 4 of these seasons. 2 I don't love quite as much, but they're not the worst things ever. I do have a lot I do like from them. So let's get started with this ranking. So coming in at last place is kind of the obvious pick. It is season 4. And yeah, this 13 episode season, this is the first season where it kind of dropped from the 20 something episodes to this 13, and it really hurt the season because they were going into it starting to plan for this sort of 20 episode something season, and then it got cut. So there's a bunch of different there were some funny things, like all the specials, like the different holiday specials, aired at the wrong times, not lining up and stuff because they got late and stuff. And then also there's a bunch of plot lines that just feel incomplete because of this, and the long overarching plot lines for the season don't really feel complete because it was cut down. Like the Chainisa plot line, they kind of set this thing up, and then they just kind of end it. It's just over, and you're just and they don't really get they have a bunch of setup and this sort of stuff, and then Chang just no, I don't want to do this to Dean Sprague, and then you're okay, that was it. And that's a bunch of things feel kind of underutilized. Dan Harmon got fired from the show. They fired the creator and hired these other showrunners to do it, and they just couldn't capture the same sort of magic that Dan Harmon was able to do, and a bunch of the other crew and stuff didn't do any episodes this season. The Russo brothers didn't direct any of the season and that sort of stuff. And yeah, it just feels like they kind of lost a bunch of the magic and the behind the scenes stuff. So, and it was a lot of trying to replicate what happened so naturally. They were trying to do a bunch of stuff this seems like what Community would do, but they weren't doing the stuff let's move on, because Community is always something that's always done something new, but they were doing on the stuff that seems like what Community would do more. And I don't know, it just that part didn't really work for me. And then lots of the episodes by themselves just had way too many plot lines. They tried giving every single character something big to do, and a bunch of stuff. One episode literally has 5 plot lines going on or something, and it kind of makes each one kind of weaker. And then this season overall didn't really have any memorable episodes. It didn't have any episodes I loved. If you look at my favorites episodes, there will not be any. There's not a single one from season 4. Not that they were all bad, it's just there's not any that were particularly great. Yeah, the ones that I found good were Cooperative Escapism, Her Story of Dance, and Basic Human Anatomy. But if they were in a better season, they would just be kind of that. Oh yeah, they're good. They're really good episodes, but not that top tier. Maybe not even that second to top tier. But yeah, I don't hate the season. You still got the great cast. You still have some funny moments, but the worst season. Coming in at 5th place is season 6. Now this is pretty neck and neck with season 4 for me, but I do think this has a slight edge because I do have quite a bit of positives to say here. First off, this is the most Dean we've ever gotten in a single season, and it's also the best Dean we've ever gotten in all the show. He has a bunch of great moments, especially the texting stuff where he's texting Jeff. That was just hilarious. I love that. And then also, last season there weren't any super memorable episodes that I loved. That was kind of a problem I had here. This season doesn't have this problem. It doesn't have that many memorable episodes or episodes that are my favorites, but it does have one that's in my favorites, and that is Modern Espionage, which they did another paintball episode, but they were able to pull it off, which actually might just be my favorite. I don't know. They're about all equal for me. I just love the spy genre, so that kind of hit there. And they were able to do something new with it, but still being a lot of fun and just what makes all the other paintball episodes great. And then the finale, I also thought was a pretty good finale. Not the best finale for a TV show I've seen. They could have done things a bit better. Like, they only got Shirley back. I understand not getting Pierce back, but they didn't get Troy back. And Shirley's not even really in it. It's just like in those scenario sort of things. So that kind of, I didn't really like about it. But the finale was good. I really liked it. But on the negative side, so this one didn't air on NBC, it aired on Yahoo Screen, which means they don't have a time constraint, so they decided to make the episodes longer, and it mostly doesn't work. There's actually quite a few episodes throughout the series, and like, ooh, I wish this could be longer, especially they're more big sort of episodes, like their genre, those big sort of episodes, and like, oh man, I wish we could have had a little bit more time on here. Like geothermal escapism, I'm like, oh man, I wish we could have a little bit more on there. But this one didn't really have any episodes like that. Besides Modern Espionage, they didn't really have many episodes that like lent itself to the longer runtime. So it's just dragged out episodes, and it just kind of made the season as a whole a lot less enjoyable and a lot less funny. As before, there was almost never a dry moment, never a bland episode. In most of them, well, maybe season 4 had some, but the seasons above this. And then this kind of has a bunch of just these bland moments. Like in the second episode of the season, I thought to myself, I'm not really enjoying this, which is something I'd never really thought in Community. Like, even when watching season 4, I guess because I was high on the show or whatever, I never thought I still really wanted to watch it and keep enjoying it and watching it. But I didn't really felt that with this season. But for some moments, overall, I did really have a fun, entertaining time. But there were some moments like that where just like, this is dragged out and stuff. So that kind of took away from the season overall. And then the cast and like the group and the characters here, it kind of is frustrating. So all the side characters here are just kind of gone, which is, the side characters are really great characters here, and people like Starburns, Magnitude, and Neil were only in one episode each. Some of the big supporting characters who I really like, they were only in one episode each, and not really for that much, which is kind of sad. And then also just the main group really felt empty. As this season, you have lost Pierce, Troy, and Shirley, and it just feels so empty when you like watch the first episode. You look at the study room, it just feels empty. And then you get 2 new additions, which I'll talk about later, but even that's less than you started with. And it kind of feels like after getting season 5, so at the beginning of season 4, Pierce leaves, like into season 5, he's not really in it, but you still have Troy, and they had 2 new characters. Well, Ian Duncan comes back and has a bigger role, and they introduce a new character. So that first half of the season, it's lots of characters, and the dynamic and stuff is still all there. And then when Troy leaves, they're able to use that as like a new sort of storyline and dealing with that sort of stuff for the end of the season and kind of keep it going. And because you still have the same amount of characters there, it's because you had more before Troy, so it's still the same amount of characters, so it never felt that empty feeling. And they kind of kept going just enough to get to the end of season 5 to end it off without it feeling like anything. But then with season 6, you lose. Not only now do you not have Pierce and Troy, but then you also lose Shirley, and even Hickey and Ian Duncan are gone. So it's like all these characters are just gone now, and they only bring in 2 new characters. So like it's kind of frustrating. And also, Shirley doesn't really get much closure with the character. She shows up at like a couple times here, but it's not actual showing up. It's like in the end credits and in someone else's thing, which is just kind of frustrating. They just kind of wrote her off like that. And then with these new additions, Elroy I thought was a nice addition. I thought he kind of filled some of the void because they always need an old guy, and they with losing Troy and Shirley, they didn't have a black person, and they're trying to hit all races and stuff to like keep the dynamic. It made sense why they needed Elroy, and he was a really fun addition. I really like his sort of in the wedding episode. He has like some really funny moments. And Frankie was an okay addition. My problem with Frankie is she's like, she plays as the straight man in the sort of show, which is something I don't think Community needs. So in the first season, lots of shows when they have a bunch of wacky characters have a sort of straight man, but then season 1 kind of started out with Jeff was very much a straight man, but then you see him kind of evolve into, he's just as crazy and fun and wacky as the rest of the characters. And the best of the show is when they're all crazy and wacky, and Annie can kind of become the straight man if she needs to, and Jeff can still become like the straight man if he needs to. Maybe even Bretta. There's a couple characters that can if they need to, but if you don't need one, why have one? That's what they realized. They can work so well without having one that they don't really need it. So I feel like, why'd they bring another one in all the way in the 6th season, and instead of trying to keep you don't really need that for the dynamics of the show. You lose a bunch of characters that are important to the dynamic of the show, and they replace her with Frankie. So that's why I didn't really like Frankie in this. She had her moments, like with the Dean, when she was just like going out roasting him, but overall, yeah, that's kind of my opinions on season 6. Okay, so keep in mind, as I said, those bottom 2 seasons were definitely bottom 2. There's a giant jump in quality here. I really like all 4 seasons on. So, okay. Coming in at number 4 is season 1. Okay, now.
I can explain. Let me explain.
So, yes, I did put season 5 over season 1. That's more not just because I don't like season 1. It's just because I actually really do like season 5. But I'll get into more of that when I talk about season 5. But season 1... I really like it, but I don't think it's top tier Community. Like, parts of certain episodes are, but overall, I feel like I don't really understand when people are like, oh, well, just seasons 1 through 3 are like the best. I'm like, I mean, if you just said seasons 2 and 3, I would actually understand that, because I think there's like a big jump from my 3 and 4 to my 1 and 2. If you just said 2 and 3, I would understand that. But I don't fully understand grouping 1 in there, but then I would also definitely include season 5. This season doesn't really start that strong. The first episode, I really don't like this first episode that much. It really doesn't really show you what the show will be at all. The characters are very different and not as strong. The writing, it has a couple funny moments, but even like the plot, like how things work and why people would trust Jeff, didn't really make any sense. And it just seems kind of like a normal average sitcom, and that's kind of like what this show kind of starts with. It just feels like kind of, your average sitcom. Nothing bad about that. I like a bunch of sitcoms, but it isn't Community, not yet. So that's kind of like what this season is trying to be. It's slowly becoming Community, and I think lots of shows kind of start off not fully knowing their identity. So it's kind of like it finds its identity at the end, but it still makes for some weak parts throughout the season overall. So like the first episode, I didn't really think was all that good, as I said, and then it starts getting good. Like season 2, like there's like that one great moment, Chang, and how they introduce Chang is amazing, but overall, like, not really that strong of an episode. And then you get to episode 3, I'm like, okay, that's where I'm like, okay, I'm into this show. I really do want to watch this show now. And then it keeps getting better and better until they get to Contemporary American Poultry, where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is just amazing. I'm really liking what they're doing. And then you get to Modern Warfare, and it truly becomes Community. And not only just because of those certain episodes, but I feel like, because not only the genre episodes and that sort of stuff is what makes them good, but I feel like the other ones in here aren't quite as strong and stuff. So yeah, I think that's a big part of them, and I think you don't really get those till later. And I don't know. That's all I'm trying to say. There's not as many standout episodes because those two are absolutely amazing and I love them. But besides that, there's not many that many standout episodes to me. Among my favorites, there's a bunch that are really great, but not among my favorites. And those great episodes throughout our home economics, I really do like this episode. I think it's one of the most underrated. All the stuff with the songs are just hilarious. And then there's Debate 109, investigative journalism. I think that's also an underrated episode. That one's just really funny. And then physical education. And Science of Illusion. So there's some really, really strong episodes and 2 amazing episodes. But overall, it's not like as complete as the other ones above. There's not as many episodes, but it's definitely a lot better than the ones below this. And then a couple other things I was saying, the characters didn't, that kind of takes away, as the characters didn't fully find themselves yet in what exactly they wanted to do, and like they had to figure some things out with him. Like Troy at the beginning, he's like a jock and stuff, and it doesn't work. I really like Troy's might possibly be my favorite character, along with Abed, and how he's introduced in the first episode isn't nearly as good as what he becomes. And then also stuff with like Britta is very different there, and I like how she evolves. And then also like their relationships that they try doing aren't really the same. They focus a lot on the Jeff and Britta relationship, which I really do like them as friends and stuff. I don't like this whole romantic thing with them, especially how big it plays into the season, because that's the thing I always appreciate about Community is they have the love stuff, but it's not always the big focus, because there's so many shows where it's like the love is like the big thing. But I always appreciated they kept it a little bit toned back and they always have like the romantic tension, but they never have like those big like sort of, they don't actually have that many relationships and that sort of stuff, but that one's all about it. And even like how the last episode is all about like a love triangle and stuff, I don't think that's the strongest aspect of Community. And then also like the specific relationships they tried like to start is Troy and Abed wasn't one they had planned from the beginning. So in the first couple of episodes, there's not really much with Troy and Abed together because they realized, they have great chemistry. So it's like they had to figure things out, but it causes those couple episodes near the beginning and different episodes not to be as strong. So overall, a really good season, and by the end of the season, I think they found their footing, but there's some parts that I'm not the biggest fan of here. Now we're into season 5, and yeah, I think this is the most underrated season. I think it's really great. So I guess I'm about to talk a lot about it, good about it. So my only real problem I have here is the first episode. It takes like a little too much to like get them all back, but you need them to find a reason for them all to be back. But the first episode is kind of not as strong because they had to spend so much time trying to make up excuses and stuff. But overall, this is just a great season with a bunch of standout episodes. This is only 13 episodes, but there's so many episodes I really love in this for its 13 episode thing. So right at the beginning, after you get to episode 1, you might have the best stretch of episodes, except maybe in season 2 there's that stretch from episode 2 into like episode geothermal escapism when Troy leaves. I love all of those ones. You got Intro to Teaching, which is a great one. I love the plot line with Abed doing the whole Nicolas Cage thing. And then you got Basic Intergluteal
Liberty Butchmilk.
Basic I don't know.
Liberty Bibberty.
Because it would be gluteal. Basic intergluteal pneumostatics. Yes, I messed it up, but you know that one. That's just a great episode. And then you have the episodes to like kind of close off some of these characters, Cooperative Polygraphy and Geothermal Escapism, which I think both are some of the best of the entire series. In my top 10, Geothermal Escapism is like in my top 5. I think for Cooperative Polygraphy, they found a way to like close off Pierce's kind of story and stuff without him actually being there, which I think is a very hard thing to do. And it's a bottle episode that really plays to all their different. It's a bottle episode that's hilarious. It's a great send-off for Pierce. And yeah, it just keeps you very much entertained throughout. And then you have Geothermal Escapism, which is a great way to do an episode that's like a big, more homage episode, genre episode of like the sort of like Mad Max and that sort of things, with it playing The Floor is Lava. That's a great idea by itself, playing a big game of Floor of Lava and how they each do each thing. That's a great idea by itself. And then throw in how it's also like a great story about Troy and Abed and that sort of emotional connection. Pit those two ingredients together and you have an amazing episode. And then also throughout the season, you also got the episode App Development and Condiments, which is just a really fun concept for an episode, which I think was executed really well. And then you have a couple other really good episodes like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Well, not as good as the first Dungeons and Dragons, still really good episode. And also really like G.I. Jeff, which I think I've never seen an episode of G.I. Joe in my life, and yet they made an episode that I could still enjoy, which I kind of very much appreciate. So yeah, I really like season 5. I think it's definitely the most underrated season. Coming in at number 2 is season 3. Now, this season continues what I love about season 2 and continues like the prime of this show. The ideas are still super creative and fresh. The characters are still great. The performances in relationships are still great. And it builds on these like themes about acceptance and how everyone can come together and still be friends while being different. Continues all the stuff I love about the show. And it's still absolutely hilarious. It gets a little bit too unrealistic at the end and just a bit too like insane in those last couple episodes with Chang and stuff. I still really enjoy those episodes when I'm watching them, but I'm just like, maybe they could have toned it back a tiny bit. I guess that is the reason, like, because I love season 2 and 3 so much. The reason why this is below is just kind of that. Yeah. But there's still so many great episodes in this season. You got Pillows and Blankets. A hilarious thing to do a pillow fight told by like a Kins Burns documentary. Genius idea. Curriculum unavailable. Regional holiday music. The First Chang Dynasty. Basic Lupin urology. Digital estate planning. Documentary filmmaking redux. Foosball and nocturnal vigilantism. And not only the best episode of this show, but my favorite, and I'd say the best of every single half-hour TV show I've ever seen, and that is Remedial Chaos Theory. I just love this episode so much. It is so great. It takes everything I love about the show and makes it into one episode with a concept that is so brilliant, and they utilize it so well. It's so well written. I'm so glad this episode actually did get nominated for an Emmy for its writing. I don't know how it didn't win, but, you know, whatever. Just love this episode, and that really elevates this season. And there's plenty of other episodes I really like. And, yeah, I just love this season. Coming in at number 1 is season 2, and this is when the show knew what it wanted to be. They knew exactly what they wanted to do. They knew what each character they wanted to be. They had all the characters here. The cast was great. Everything was just working for this season. I mean, there's still a couple episodes that are just pretty good, but if you have a 20-something episode, you'd expect that. But it's kind of crazy. There are like almost half of the episodes that I think are amazing. Like, it's crazy how good something can be like number 12 out of 20-something, and I can still love the episode overall. It's insane how many amazing episodes this has. And they're also, like, let's just take a look at this. They have the 2 amazing paintball episodes. They have cooperative calligraphy, advanced Dungeons and Dragons, conspiracy theories and interior design, intermediate documentary filmmaking, Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, aerodynamics of gender, and critical film studies. Those are my favorites, and I listed a bunch. It's not even all the classic episodes of this season. Like, there's a couple here that are right below it that are also just really great. It's just, I didn't want to mention the entire season, basically, except, like, a couple episodes. And then also with those episodes, it's not like they're all sort of same. Each episode is very different, very creative, and they're able to have these more grounded episodes and these more out there episodes and balance them really well, and they all feel like the same show. It doesn't feel like you're watching different shows, and I think that goes to how consistent these characters are. The characters always feel like themselves, so you pin them in these different things, it still feels connected and stuff. So this is just phenomenal season television. So many great episodes. I just love this season so much, so that's why it comes in at number 1. So that is my ranking of all 6 seasons of Community. I plan on doing a bunch more Community videos because I couldn't really say all my thoughts about Community as a whole within this ranking format and only talking about here. I really want to dive into these characters, so I will do a character ranking at some point, and I also really want to dive into more specific episodes, so I might do a top 10 favorite episodes, maybe go through each season and rank them or something like that, so I can dive deeper into these characters and episodes. Comment down below, have you seen Community? What is your ranking of the seasons? And if you haven't seen Community, go watch it now. It's on Netflix and Hulu. I highly recommend it. Please like and subscribe and keep watching Neek.